So, obviously, there is no fancy imaging or music of any kind. That means we're just going to jump directly into this. Welcome to episode 1 of Kirkin Out. I'm Kirk If you're not too familiar with me, that's okay. We're just going to call me a media professional. I've worked in television for a decent amount of years, from Alabama to Ohio and Virginia. Virginia's where I'm from. I'm an Old Dominion University graduate, and I love sports. So this is what this podcast is going to be about. We're going to base it off of sports, but also around life in general. I've had some great experiences throughout my career, different parts of the country, meeting some amazing people. And I want to bring a lot of those people in to share their experiences, their knowledge, while talking about this day and age in sports, but also reminiscing a little bit, learning about them, where they come from, and also what their experiences are like versus mine. If you're watching, thank you. Listening, thank you. Now, if you are watching, please make note of this bookshelf behind me. I've been told that to do things like that, a great home studio is very important. So I don't have any books on the bookshelf. I just call it a memorabilia shelf, but you can see a lot of stuff I've accumulated in my travels throughout the years. So for episode 1, this is a lot of fun. I bring in an old friend of mine, a former coworker. So without any further ado, we're just going to jump directly into it. Here's guest number 1 on episode 1 of Kirkin Out. All right, we are very pleased to welcome our first podcast guest. This is a pretty awesome experience for me, and I wanted to reach out to this guy individually because it's been a while since we've seen each other in person, and I'm talking about Mr. Mo Carter, sports director down there at WZDX in Huntsville, Mo, or is it Huntsville? I'm trying to remember my Alabama terms. Is it best to say Huntsville or Huntsville?
The professional way is to say Huntsville, but the local way is to say Huntsville.
Yeah, I mean, throw professional out the window. I'm not a professional at all. I'm going to go with Huntsville. So it's great to see you, Mo. I think the last time we saw each other was 2015. For those want a quick little background, Mo was my boss, my coworker, my friend down there at Alabama News Network in Montgomery, Alabama. I came to the station first, and Mo, you arrived in what year?
It was in 2013.
Yeah, and then we had some pretty cool experiences. One of our first big trips was out Pasadena, right? Would that be it?
Absolutely, man. Pasadena, the 2014 BCS National Championship between Auburn and Florida State. What an experience we had out there, man.
Yeah, seeing Jameis Winston and all those guys play. Now he's the Saints backup quarterback. We don't have to get into that. I know you're a Saints guy, Drew Brees, Jameis Winston. We don't need to cover that right now. But just a quick little background about yourself. I see the Southern jersey behind you. If you could just tell people at home just a little bit more about yourself, where you got to this point, how you started in television, and where you came from.
All right. Well, quickly about me. Born and raised in a small town called Napoleonville, Louisiana, about an hour south of Baton Rouge, hour 15 west of New Orleans. Currently, Napoleonville is home to 2 Super Bowl champions and 1 Olympic gold medalist. That's Brandon Jacobs and Tremont Williams, my 2 former high school teammates on the football and track teams. And then Kim Willoughby, she played for the U.S. Olympic team for volleyball back in the mid-2000s as well. Know all those people, wonderful folks and whatnot. As far as me, I was athletically involved, very, very early age. Of course, eventually I made All-State high school-wise, but also was involved with doing a lot of things speaking-wise that eventually led me to major mass communications. I started at Nicholls State University, transferred to Southern University in Baton Rouge, where I obtained my Bachelor of Arts degree in mass communications. During that time, I did all kinds of internships, including WAFB, Channel 9 in Baton Rouge. Ended up working for them for 2 years. Went to Alexandria, Louisiana for another 3 years. Enjoyed that. And Sinlize, a lot of people know about it. And then one day, I received an email from another mutual friend of ours, D. Jackson, saying, hey, man, I'm getting ready to leave or whatever. There's a spot coming up. I can let Rob Martin, our former news director, know about you if you want to. I'm like, sure, man, put my name in there. All of a sudden, Rob calls me the next day. I'm interviewing the next week. And then 3 weeks later, I'm in Montgomery, in which I meet you. I don't think I met you in my interview, but I know for sure I met you the next time when Lakeisha and I were looking for a place to stay. And I think you and I chatted for about 20 minutes. You kind of told me what to expect. And after that, man, we rolled with it for the next 2 years and definitely enjoyed being a great co-worker of yours. I know eventually you left for greener pastures. Eventually, I was able to move to Huntsville for a better opportunity a few years later. And I'm currently in my position going into my 4th year. Actually, I'm in my 4th year, so I guess I can say I'm going into my 5th year here in Huntsville, Alabama, which is basically becoming a blooming metropolis in the state of Alabama. Next, 3 to 4 years, this will probably be the largest metro area in the state of Alabama. So it's pretty cool. A lot of good things going on. Lots of great college athletic programs at UAH and also at Alabama A&M. We also have University of North Alabama. They just made a Division I transition. And the coolest thing, and you would love this, dude, we now have a minor league baseball team here, the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Trashed Out. Of course, they are the transplant of the Mobile Bay Bears. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to get the kickoff season this year, but looking forward to 2021. But man, if you ever make it down here, we're going to a Trash Pandas game because, dude, I will tell you, that stadium is nice, and they're really looking forward to making these things happen.
Yeah, you know my love for baseball. And it's funny you bring up the Trash Pandas. Just up the road from me in Richmond is Fredericksburg Nationals, who moved to the area, brand new stadium, just like Rocket City. Pandemic hits, no games, no fans. But what's it been like there in North Alabama with this team? I know you've probably caught up with the organization. They're obviously hurting during the pandemic, just like other minor league teams. But how difficult has it been for them to lose their first season?
Believe it or not, it hasn't been as bad as many people thought. The main thing is this. I've been able to talk to Ralph Nelson. He's the president and CEO of the company that owns the Trash Pandas. And their merchandise sale has been the thing that has saved them so much to where they haven't been able to cut staff. They haven't been able to cut this or cut that. I mean, merchandise sales, let's just say this. They expected like, I don't know, I'm going to throw a figure out there, $2 million worth of merchandise in the first 2 years, and they went like $4 million. You know, it's something of that nature. Basically, they've doubled what it's supposed to be, and of course, the popularity is definitely taking off. I remember seeing Neil Everett on SportsCenter one night rocking a Trash Pandas T-shirt. So it lets you know that the name is it's out there for sure, man. But of course, they've been doing a lot of other good things happening. They hired former World Series champion Jay Bell as the manager and head coach of the organization. He was able to do a couple of baseball and skills camps here during the summer. Another thing, they were able to do a couple of travel ball tournaments too. So they've been able to get revenue coming in. They've had various other events. As a matter of fact, this upcoming Saturday shows you how the Trash Panda staff knows how to cater to a local audience. This upcoming Saturday, they're actually having a college football day at the stadium because they have a huge big screen in the right field. So basically, they're selling tickets for people to come and watch Auburn's game at 11, whatever the CBS game is at 2:30, and then the Alabama game at 6 o'clock. Of course, you still have to social distance, but you're still able to like get food and, enjoy the atmosphere. I think you can sit in the stands or you can go on the field and just watch you on the big screen. Along with that, I think they've done movie nights as well. So they've been doing things to keep the people engaged or whatever, just as a backup plan. And basically majorities have been sold out to a point to where it's like it becomes a waiting list and then people want to see what's happening next. So they've actually been doing really good things to basically keep stuff out there. And then they realize, man, when 2021 comes around, it's going to be on and popping.
Yeah, it's great to see people just trying to come up with the ideas. Unfortunately, the pandemic has changed so many things for us, but it's a good week to talk to you because, as you mentioned, there's SEC football starting on Saturday.
Right.
That's a big deal. I kind of remember from my time in Alabama that people like football, college football. So the way things have gone, you've seen some other teams across the country that have already started their seasons. You've seen how COVID has canceled some games and postponed them here in Virginia and Virginia Tech were pushed back to the end of the season. What has things been like for Nick Saban, for Gus Malzahn and their teams trying to make sure they follow protocols, but also trying to make sure they're ready for this Saturday in a very strange year?
Okay, so for Nick Saban in Alabama, man, they've kind of been ahead of everybody with everything because not only have they been doing the multi-week testing, I think now for Alabama, it's got to a point where, man, they're basically doing it like, they're not doing it every day, they're doing it like every other day for sure. But I know Nick said in his recent press conference, the players have an opportunity to take COVID tests every day if they choose to. So luckily, they have not had any COVID-related situations to where their guys had to miss any time. For Auburn, it's been a completely different situation. Gus Malzahn and company, I think about 2 weeks ago, I think it was like 18 or 20 players or whatever were impacted by it. I think it was 9 positive tests, but then you think about their roommates and their suite mates, and all this happened happened because Auburn went back to school, and I guess people just weren't doing social distance in the best scenario. Now, good news for Coach Malzahn. He mentioned over the weekend that they had no new cases or whatever as of last Friday, and they expect the majority of those guys to be back for practice as they get ready for this upcoming week. So, of course, both coaches said this is a new normal. This is a situation they've never experienced before. And the interesting thing, too, is that, like, it kind of says if you have a guy out, it's almost like you need to add them to the injury list, but you want to respect their privacy as well. So it's kind of like a touchy subject on that because, you know, both of those coaches really care about their football players in general, especially Nick Saban. I mean, you saw him leading protest marches a few weeks ago with his entire team. So it's been a really interesting scenario with those teams. I got to give kudos to Greg Sankey and the SEC commissioner for being ahead of everything. This guy was giving updates all the time about this, and that. Of course, him being in Birmingham, he had been working with the University of Alabama at Birmingham, or UAB, to get the latest medical things going. So I'll say it's been a challenge, but I think both Alabama and Auburn have handled it well. But now you have football starting this weekend, so we'll see what happens when those next round of tests come from it.
It's going to be a weird season, obviously, a different way the schedules are put together, just so many questions up in the air. Do you think this is the year maybe we'll see a different team in the SEC make some noise? I know Kentucky's up there, Tennessee's trending upward, or is this kind of a still Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia kind of conference?
I think it kind of is. Now, I will say this: dark horse in this fold or whatever will probably be Tennessee. I mean, I'm paying a lot of attention to Tennessee primarily because Jeremy Pruitt, he's from Rainsville, Alabama, which is in the viewing area about 45 minutes east of here. And of course, Tennessee, after having that terrible start in 2019, they came on and eventually, you know, rounded out the season with a lot of momentum. Now, they were another team that had COVID situations really take a bad scenario for their team, but hopefully they're able to come back with it. But he has a ton of loaded he has a loaded team with a ton of starters returning, experienced quarterback coming back, and I think Tennessee possibly could make some noise in the East. But I really think it's, you know, those four you mentioned, and then Tennessee possibly as well. It's probably your five favorites. And the best thing about this year is that you get an all SEC schedule. So you get these matchups that you're not used to seeing in the past. And Nick Saban said he just loves it because he's always wanted to have more SEC games and his players play more SEC teams. So it's really, really going to be a grind. I'm going to miss not seeing the non-conference games or whatever, the big-time ones and then the small-time ones. But yeah, the fact that we have football coming back this weekend is still pretty cool with that.
For sure, be a lot to look forward to. And you're a college football guy like me. You have great experience. And now we see Deion Sanders coming south to JSU. What kind of impact do you think he can have on HBCU football? I know there's been some amazing coaches in the past and will continue to be more moving forward, but this is a really, you know, he's prime time. You know, he brings a lot of attention with him. Do you think he's going to have a really positive impact there in the SWAC?
I think he will have a positive impact. Of course, you've seen a lot of things already come to fruition media-wise. I mean, Deion Sanders was on an interview with Michael Strahan on Good Morning America, you know, the day after he got hired with Jackson State. And of course, I think he was on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp, and ESPN definitely had mentioned it throughout the thing. So I think the impact and the notoriety that primetime brings to the SWAC is going to be great. I mean, he's one of my top 3 all-time favorite players, thus the number 21. That's why I rocked it or whatever. You know, you throw a guy like him, and if you want to know, top 3 defensive guys for me are Deion Sanders, Aeneas Williams, and Mel Blount. Notice 2 of the guys went to Southern that I mentioned, and they're also in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But no, I think he brings a lot of notoriety. He's going to bring some more swagger to the SWAC. But my thing is this, and this is just me, Kirk, because you know me well enough. You know that at the end of the day, I got to see results. I think he's going to get great guys to come to Jackson State or whatever. But I also think that Jackson State was in a point where they needed somebody to buy into their university so they can bring more people to support as well.
One of just a couple of little fun things now. You spent a lot of years in the business of television like I have and travel the country, do some cool things. Do you have any favorite, like if I had to pinpoint a top 2 or top 3, or even if you could narrow it down to 1, what's some like your favorite memories or you just even people you might have met, come across, you know, without your job and your career, you might not have ever been in those situations before?
Oh man, like even in the last couple of years here in Huntsville, I mean, I've had an opportunity to meet some great individuals. Pro Football Hall of Famer John Stallworth, who played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a graduate of Alabama A&M. He's held a celebrity golf tournament the last couple of years. Well, not couple of years. I think like the last 18, 19 years here in the city of Huntsville during the summer. Of course, it's for scholarships for local kids and whatnot. He also names a male athlete and female athlete of the year. Of course, he brings back a lot of his former Steeler players. So, of course, Mel Blount, always get a chance to, see him. We was always coming up and whatnot. And then, once Mel found out that I was a Southern guy, of course, the relationship really, really took off. So, I've had a chance to chat it up with him. Jerome Bettis was also here a couple of times. Hines Ward has also come through. So, I mean, you almost named like a famous Steelers player. Terry Bradshaw was here the first year I got here for Huntsville. God, that guy's so crazy. But it was still a fun experience just interviewing him or whatever. So, those guys are always pretty cool. The Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama, they do a big banquet during the summer. They always bring in a big name person. Last summer, got a chance to chat it up with Brett Favre, because the guy who runs the North Alabama Boys and Girls Club, he actually was a teammate of Brett Favre at Southern Miss. So that was really, really cool to talk with him. He's also brought Charles Barkley and Emmitt Smith and Evander Holyfield up here as well. So those scenarios have always been good to see that. Now, as far as great memories, and Kirk, you're a part of this one, man. I can go all the way back to November of 2013. You and I at Jordan-Hare Stadium for the Iron Bowl, which famously becomes known as the Kick Six game. I still recall you, myself, and John Longshore in the end zone where Chris Davis was at, knowing that we had to go live on the Alabama News Network as soon as that game went off. And we were like, well, it's probably going to be overtime and stuff. And we both saw the kick. And then I think you and I were kind of like, okay, let's see what's going on or whatever. And then I think you say Mo, he's running it back. And it was like, oh, wow. And then there's a picture from AL.com. And I think there's somewhere on our Facebook page that has both of our faces and then Ashley Swafford, our producer, she's an Alabama grad. So she was like, no. And then all of a sudden, Davis runs it back. I look at Darius, who's our photographer. I'm like, you need to go get that right there. So he gets in the pile or whatever. So yeah, that's probably one of my top all-time favorite sports sports memories. And of course, you were a part of it too, man. What do you remember from that?
Man, I remember being stuck on the field when the fans rushed there at Jordan-Hare, and I was trying to make it to the post-game locker room, right, to get Gus Malzahn. And I remember just being literally stuck on the field. I had to climb over some hedges, hop over into the stands. I think I made it into the press conference, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to spare. It took me probably 10 minutes to get off the field and get through. It was just a crazy experience. And I'm just trying in my mind, I'm like, I need to go do my job. And no one cares. You think anybody there on the field cares? And more people are coming down. So it was a pretty cool experience. As you said, just those games and those situations, knowing that we're still going to be able to cover that whoever won moving forward. That was just one of the coolest things about working in Alabama. You've been multiple national championship games. What do you have? What do you have for me? I know maybe there's a question you've been building up. We haven't seen each other in about 5 years. We've chatted, but you got anything for me? The hard hitting, journalistic question coming my way. I got to be on the other side.
Absolutely. First question. I know you are a huge DC sports fan. What is Kirk Nowatzki's mascot name for the Washington football team, if you had to name it?
I'm going with the Red Wolves.
Red Wolves.
I know people have been, you kind of feel that movement. You see it happening online right now. I think they can keep the same colors. It has red in it. I think you even look at their new team president has kind of even hinted at recognizing what people say. I think fans are a big deal, and if there's that much movement of the fans making all these different mock logos, jersey concept, I think the team will have to kind of go that way, because you got to trust the fans, right? It's important to be involved with them. And if that's the vocal majority, maybe they'll even hold a fan vote at some point. I know they've been asking for suggestions, but I'm going to go with Red Wolves. It seems like it has that momentum. I know I think Daniel Snyder came out the other day and said, maybe we know what the name is going to be, and it's just going to be Washington football team. I get it, but I also don't think that's probably the right way to go. It's, just come up with the name. So I'm going to go with Red Wolves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you this: when Dan Snyder came up with that thing, the first thing I thought about was like when Prince, went to the symbol, and I'm like, are they going to just have a symbol and be like the team formerly known as Washington? That's what I really thought was going to happen. If anything, I thought it would actually been pretty cool because think about the merchandise you could have like really just sold with that, like they just created like some kind of crazy symbol or something of that nature. Another question: I actually always wanted to ask you this and never got around to it. Sticking with the Washington sports stuff, what were your impressions when Michael Jordan was playing for the Wizards in his final years, in which a lot of people thought he probably should have never came back?
I mean, it was pretty cool. Now, admittedly, I didn't get to watch. I was alive during Jordan's prime years, but I didn't get to necessarily watch. As you're a lot younger at that point. I was born in the late '80s, so what I knew of Jordan and I followed him, but then he retired. And then once he came back to DC, I thought it was really cool. I didn't really, at the time, I just honestly kind of thought what it was kind of more of a little bit of a publicity stunt. I know he wanted to jump back in. I think it gave them some good focus, but then he also made a lot of other decisions, right? I think it kind of set the franchise back in a different way, to be honest, because some players were traded away. I think Rip Hamilton was traded away, which was one of my favorite. Yeah, one of my favorite players, because like Jordan didn't want to play with him. So
and then won a championship with the Detroit Pistons the next year.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think there was some good and bad behind it. It's those weird years that no one really wants to talk about. I have a Jordan jersey hanging up in my closet somewhere, white Wizards jersey. So it's pretty cool to say, hey, he was there and I was able to go see him play, because we were, I grew up going to Bullets games and then Wizards games once they changed their name. So it was a pretty cool experience, but probably one that I think most people wish didn't happen. But I think it's kind of cool for the Wizards franchise. That's for sure. It was good catching up with you. And also you mentioned your wife earlier in the podcast. Congratulations. I know there's another future Carter down the line, right? When are y'all due?
Yes, sir. We are due December the 6th. Hashtag Baby Carter 2020 is coming very, very soon. So, we're in the last trimester. Looking forward to it. Of course, the gender reveal was a really, really cool thing. I know a lot of people are like, hey, what did you want? And I told them that, I just wanted a healthy child or whatever and stuff. But, to see that to the boy, it's pretty cool. Funny thing is, Keisha wanted a boy through and through. So, so that was awesome. Excuse me. That was good to hear. My father-in-law, if you look through the video, he's so happy because he had 3 girls, so he never had a boy. He loves me so much because I'm his son-in-law or whatever. But like now he gets a grandson. That's going to be great. And my parents are pretty thrilled or whatever about it too. We'll be dropping the name very, very soon. We've had very long strategic discussions over this or whatever. But I think the final answer will be something that a lot of people will like. So yeah, that's coming soon. Very, very soon. But yeah, man, Baby Carter's coming and we're really, really excited about it, because of course, heck, you knew me and Keisha before we were married. Now that I think about it. So, and of course, she always talks fondly of you or whatever. She just always said that, yeah, Kirk always made me laugh.
Man, that's a good thing. That should be the title of the podcast. Change it to Kirk Makes Me Laugh.
Hey, why not? So now you got 2 working in the process. You either got Kirk Makes Me Laugh or Kirking It?
Kirkin Out.
Kirkin Out. Okay.
Kirking It. Whoa. We gotta roll that back a little bit. That's we're gonna have to change this podcast rating from E to something a little higher than that if it's called Kirking It. Once again, a huge thank you to Mo Carter for joining me as the first guest on this podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to give him a follow on Twitter, on Facebook. It's really, really easy. Just takes a couple clicks. Come on, people. You can get to that. I'll even wait a few seconds for it. I mean, you pretty much could have done it by now. Mo always has great updates on everything going on there in North Alabama alongside his teammates at WZDX, especially with the upcoming SEC football season about to kick off this weekend. I'll see you next time on Kirkin Out.